Hi, my name is Janae Schluter, and today we're going to be talking about Thomas Gallaudet, who was an American educator for those who were deaf. So Thomas Gallaudet was born on December 10, 1781 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Gallaudet was an extremely smart man who attended Yale to earn his bachelor's degree at the age of 17 and then went on to earn his master's degree a few years later from Yale as well. Gallaudet studied many fields before immersing himself into the field of education. He studied law, trade, and theology, which he would all work a little bit in. However, Thomas's health often would get in the way of accepting jobs. Gallaudet's career path was soon altered by a neighbor, Alice Cogswell. On the way home to his parents' home in Hartford, Connecticut one day, Gallaudet noticed a young neighbor not playing with anyone. Thomas soon learned that the little girl was deaf and could not communicate with anybody else and was stuck inside her own world. Gallaudet quickly became interested in learning what the young girl already knew and teaching her even more. He would point to objects and then write the name of the object in the dirt to teach the young girl. Alice's father was pleased with Gallaudet's teachings and wanted him to travel to Europe with them to further Alice's education, as there were no current educational institutions for the deaf within the United States. While in Europe, Gallaudet tried to learn as much as possible. However, he did not face much success. Many of the institutions would turn him away if he could not provide the financial obligations. Also, Gallaudet was not pleased with the oral method that European teachers were encouraging. The oral method focuses on teaching lip reading to those who are deaf as well as verbal communication, which Gallaudet did not believe actually worked. Gallaudet eventually met John Machaut and Laurent Clark, who he would learn a lot from. Clark traveled back to America with Gallaudet, and they eventually created the first educational institution for the deaf, which is now known as the American School for the Deaf in West Hartford, Connecticut. Gallaudet would serve as the principal of the American School for the Deaf until having to retire due to his health problems. It was at the American School for the Deaf that American Sign Language was created, and for the first time, the students had a universal way of communicating with one another. The creation of American Sign Language is one of Gallaudet's largest influences, as it is still in use today. Gallaudet's new school was gaining more attention and began receiving government funding, which allowed for expansion and the teaching of even more students. Gallaudet unfortunately passed away in September of 1851 due to ongoing health problems. However, his son Edward Gallaudet was inspired by Thomas's grassroots work with the deaf community. Edward Gallaudet started the first college for the deaf, Gallaudet University, located in Washington, D.C., which was named in honor of his father, Thomas. Thomas and Edward's impact lives on in the education of the deaf. On today's campus at Gallaudet University, one can even see a statue of Thomas and Alice Cogswell. Thomas Gallaudet has a lasting impact on the field of education and the deaf community. Gallaudet was able to create formal education for the deaf and show the public that people with differences are still able to learn. Gallaudet was able to create lasting opportunities for the deaf by creating an education system as well as the language system of the American Sign Language. Gallaudet's impact forced a large step in the direction of diversifying education. While I personally believe Thomas Gallaudet took many strides in the right direction, he did also face many critics. When first traveling to Europe to learn more about the methods and practices of teaching the deaf, Gallaudet was not impressed with the oral method of communication. By voicing his opinion, he quickly received hate and was turned away by many educators. Many believed this way was the only method to teaching the deaf, therefore he was not accepted for thinking of anything other than the oral method. Diversifying the field of education and including a new group of people in formal education also brought about much criticism. When bringing the idea of formal education for the deaf back to America, many people did not think it was possible to try and teach individuals that cannot hear. However, Gallaudet was able to prove them wrong. The creation of a new language, the American Sign Language, faced criticism in correlation with supporters of the oral method. Many believed the deaf were not capable of learning a new language, or there should not be the creation of a new language, and instead they should learn the oral method in order to speak, just like everyone else. In my opinion, Thomas Gallaudet was able to provide lasting opportunities and impacts not only in the deaf community, but also in the field of education. Gallaudet not only created a formal education system and a universal language system, but he began a movement of advocating for those who are deaf. Where young children like Alice Cogswell would have been stuck in his or her own world for the rest of their lives, Thomas Gallaudet was able to provide them a chance to communicate with the outside world. Gallaudet proved that the deaf should be given equal opportunities and rights as well. Gallaudet encouraged the diversification of the field of education by encouraging the fact that everyone is capable of learning. Sometimes it just takes new methods or ways of thinking, like Gallaudet demonstrated. In my opinion, Gallaudet highlights the importance of education as well as embracing others despite differences.